We are joined by a group of incredible women, our female coaches here at T2FIT. We've got stories of personal journeys, challenges, motherhood, and how these incredible women balance everything along the way. She is going to be talking about 3 ways to balance everything.
I fundamentally think by prioritising yourself, it's going to make you happier, which in turn then makes everyone else around you happier. Giving myself that extra hour means that I'm actually a better human being for the rest of my family, for everyone else around me as well.
She's going to be talking through encouraging women to get involved in sport.
Sport builds community, togetherness. I feel even now as an adult, like I have always had the opportunity to learn new skills, to be challenged, be open to trying new things. You'll never know what you might find.
Challenging journey to become a mum led her to find her why.
I couldn't imagine being a parent. Yeah, it was a real mental struggle for me, I think that pregnancy was. I didn't realise how much I needed exercise for my mental health.
After struggling a little bit post-baby, looked to supplements to balance out her energy and her hormone levels.
But I just felt very different. Like obviously when you first have a baby, it's very natural to be emotional, but I was just very emotional. I was like, I need something to help me that's going to help balance this like hormonal like mood swing.
Completely transformed her body and completed a high rocks less than a year after having her second baby.
So it must have been when he was 4 months, I think. I was like, I need to step back to the gym. I had to become selfish. If I was going to do this transformation, I was going all in.
Challenges Amy has taken part in over the years and how that has built her resilient mindset.
You can only learn from failing, if you want to call it that. Challenge yourself. Comfort zones need to be pushed and stretched because you've got so much more in you than you think you do. Hello and welcome to T2FIT Talks podcast, where we aim to educate and inspire individuals to achieve their full potential. For this special episode, I am your host, Amy, and today we are joined by a group of incredible women, our female coaches here at T2FIT. We've got so much stuff to get through, and so we're going to get straight into it because we've got stories of personal journeys, challenges, motherhood, and how these incredible women balance everything along the way to be their healthiest, fittest self. Our first guest is Coach Bridge. She is going to be talking about 3 ways to balance everything and also achieve her health and fitness goals along the way. She's also a busy mum of 2, and she is a club manager here at Pearly. So, welcome, Bridge.
Hey Ames, thanks for having me.
No worries. So Bridge, we as women are often expected to kind of do it all.
Yeah.
Be a mum, go to work, go to the gym, be on top of our food, everything in between as well.
100%.
How do you manage to do this while sort of staying true to yourself?
I think it's a big juggle, and I think that any parent or even just any individual knows in life you really need to make sure if you're busy you have to plan, and it really does take really solid planning schedules to actually make it happen. For me, I have to diarise. Everything's diarised along with my husband, family calendar. It all works that way. When I'm doing my sessions, he knows that I'm doing them. When he's doing his, I know he's doing his. But that also has to work around the girls and their schedules as well, which are hectic, which I'm sure there are plenty of parents out here that have the same scenarios I have going on. Food prep, really, really important. Just making sure you get that done. Booking in that time just to batch cook even those times for your week. If it's a Sunday afternoon, if it's a Monday afternoon, whatever it is, just getting it done. Really planning your meals as well. And of course, I mean, I'm really lucky. I've got an amazing village behind me. So using my village to really help make sure that everything runs smoothly and that everyone has everything that they need, including myself and including my husband and including the girls. It's just the most important thing.
Amazing. So you covered quite a few things there in terms of diarising, food prep, and having that village. If we go back to how you diarise and schedule workouts, I think there will be a lot of women, especially mums, who would struggle to prioritise themselves and actually put that time in to diarise and get a workout done.
Yeah, 100%.
How do you even go about kind of prioritising that or making sure that actually happens?
I really look in advance. So for me, once I'm in term time, my kids are at school, so things are fairly blanked out as to what the system and situation for the week is going to be. So I basically look at what the week has got in front of it, and I really just book out time within that. So for example, I know that Monday and Tuesday nights it's just going to be a no-go for me to train anytime unless it's before I pick the girls up from school. So I will choose a day that I will just get my steps in, and one of those days I will make sure that I stay after work and I will train for that extra hour, because that's the only time that I know that I can do it over those days. The other days of the week, I know that I can prioritise that and schedule that in, because I can work around my husband working from home, or if the girls are with their grandparents, or if I'm working on a late shift. So it really is a matter of looking at the week in advance, or even the month in advance, which I like to do, and just really honing in and putting those in and putting it on all the calendars. It's really important.
That's amazing. It sounds like you've really nailed prioritising yourself. I think there'd probably be a lot of women, especially mums, that would feel guilty for doing that.
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
I think we all have a tendency to do that. I certainly do definitely get a bit of mum guilt, but I fundamentally think that by prioritising yourself, it's going to make you happier, which in turn then makes everyone else around you happier. Giving myself that extra hour means that I'm actually a better human being for the rest of my family, for everyone else around me as well. But it's also really important because I think as a mum of girls as well, it's teaching them that being strong and being secure in yourself, it's super important. And they see you doing that, so they understand that I'm prioritising my health and fitness, because with that, it means that my life is going to be longer and it's going to be better to spend that with them as well.
Amazing. And then going back to point 2, you talked about food prep.
Yeah.
You sort of in the intro said it in quite a kind of easy way, just get it done. And I appreciate for you that's part of your life, and it really works for your family, which is great. Yeah. But for someone that's even struggling where to begin with that, or just says, I haven't got time, I can't food prep, how can I possibly fit that into my already chaotic life? What would you recommend, or in terms of ideas, or not even ideas for recipes, but in terms of where to start?
Yeah, I think a simplified way of looking at it is when you're doing your weekly shop. For me personally, I will plan out what meals I'm cooking in that week. So essentially, you know what you're going to be doing. So you know the best and freshest ingredients that you can get. If you're doing an online shop, you can really just whittle it down, and you can be really prioritising exactly what you need to get in that. If you're going into the supermarket as well, you can get a little bit distracted as well. So you end up picking up all those little bits that you don't mean to pick up. But really just selecting your meals in advance. But I think just thinking about things in moderation as well. Eating as fresh as possible, cooking as clean as possible, in terms of just not doing loads of tins of everything. Just, if you're going to do tinned tomatoes, not like pureed sauces, etc., because they've got loads of salt and potassium in them. So it's just finding ways that you can actually simplify that, rather than being, I've got 4 hours, I'm going to cook, because that's just not practical. I'd love to have 4 hours to do it, to be honest with you. I probably have an hour on a Sunday that I do any sort of version of batch cooking. But just using simple meals, so spaghetti bolognese, or if you're going to do fish one night, just do fish and veg. Just really easy ways that you can do it.
Amazing.
Yeah. And
would you and the family all have the same meals, or do you kind of end up cooking different things for different people?
I would love to say that we all eat the same, but I would be lying to you. My 2 girls, they can be a little bit different, but I think, so my husband and I eat the same thing every night. The girls, I attempt to have them to have the same thing, but again, as long as they're eating, I'm happy, but they do get the best of what they can have. So they'll have something different, but there'll be fundamentally something that's the same, whether it's the same protein and they have different sides to it, or same sides, different protein. Yeah. So there'll be similarities, but I will say that my girls are a little bit fussy. So
that's good to hear.
It's definitely a situation of cooking 3 meals at once, that's for sure.
Amazing. And then this point of village, I think that's really interesting that you say that, given that you're not from anywhere near Purley originally.
Yeah.
How have you kind of cultivated your village, and where does your village and support network come from?
Yeah, no, I'm super, super lucky with my village. And the reason I call it a village is I think that it's a way of describing like community support. And I'm incredibly lucky. As you all know, I'm from New Zealand, so I actually don't have any of my family here. So my immediate family is my husband's family, and I'm extremely lucky. I'm super close with them, but they're also incredibly supportive, and they're very, very active in our children's lives. So we're really, really lucky. But the other networks aside from that as well is that, you know, is school parents, nursery friends, all those sorts of things. They all become part of your village, and really supporting one another. It's just so important. I mean, I've got other friends that are in similar situations to what I am, where they don't have a lot of family support surrounding them. So in that case, I'm quite often their village. So it'll be picking the kids up after school if they need it. It'll be dropping them to a club if they need it. Because a lot of the times you can find coordination behind that. And searching for that village, it takes time. And building that, it takes time. But once you have that, you realise the importance of it. And I feel incredibly lucky to have this level of support that I do have. Because honestly, I think I'd go mad. But so I appreciate so much if someone doesn't have that situation, and I hope that they will find that, because it's magical when it happens, because when it works.
And talking about community, how do you think that the community at T2FIT has really helped shaped you, but then also other members here as well?
I think I sort of feel like I've been on a bit of a journey with T2FIT, which is really special. And I think it's shaped me as a person, because I think helping to transform people's lives is really important, and it also becomes transformational for yourself as well. I really believe in practicing what you preach as well, so it's really important to say. I think seeing all of our clients have such amazing wins and successes, it's just such an amazing ride to be alongside with them. But it also makes me want to do exactly the same thing. They inspire me every day to be stronger and fitter. I mean, I recently competed in athletics alongside a lot of our clients as well, which was a massive achievement, and just really brilliant to just all be in the trenches together, you know. So I think that's really important, that as a trainer, they see me doing the same thing that I'm saying to them, because otherwise, what's the point?
Practice what you preach, right?
100% practice what you preach.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Kind of summing that up then, for women out there that are maybe struggling, feeling like their life is a bit chaotic and they're just really finding it hard to manage it all, as it's International Women's Day, what would you say to that woman?
I would say, if you have the ability to stop and take a breath and just reset, do that. I think that we as women really get stuck on the pressures of just doing it all and putting ourselves last. And from personal experience, I can easily say that by just making a choice to choose yourself for a little while, even if it's just a few hours a week or doing a course or whatever, the benefits that surround your life, it's never ending. You know, the ripple effect that goes on with that is just, it's really quite amazing, because by actually committing to yourself and investing that time in yourself, you make other people see how much better you are for yourself for doing that, because you're better for them. So for me, I made some selfish choices when I turned 40, and that was to obviously fulfill my dream, become a PT, and end up being alongside you guys, which has been amazing. But my girls seeing me do that, that was a really proud moment for me, because they were like really cheering me on along the other side, and they were saying, "Go, Mum, that's so amazing that you're doing that." And the ripple effect of that is that I'm happier, they're happier, I get more time with them, we've got quality time together. And do you know what? I think my kids are pretty athletic these days, and I think that's a lot of that is to do with watching me as well. So they learn from me. So I think anyone that is struggling to find that time, I think you're struggling to find that time because you're feeling guilty. Don't feel guilty, because if you ever choose yourself, it's the most important thing.
Oh, Bridge, you've been incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, Ames.
Next up, I'm going to be talking to Coulsdon's coach, Jem, where she's been in team environments, not just from a coaching perspective, but also in competitive sports herself. She's going to be talking through encouraging women to get involved in sport. So welcome, Jem.
Hi.
So just tell the viewers a little bit about your background in terms of getting into sports and playing hockey and your background.
So I pretty much played hockey now all of my life. I grew up on the side of the hockey pitch. So just for like my whole family plays hockey, so I don't really know if I had much of a choice. It was pretty much like you will play. My granddad, he used to play on grass. My parents met playing in a mixed hockey team. I got my first hockey stick for my first Christmas. So it was almost kind of predetermined. And do you know, I just don't know any different whatsoever. So how it works is that you play in what we would call like Colts or kids section. And I played that all the way up to 18. But from 13, you can start playing adult hockey. So now, 17 years, that's a lot, isn't it? 17 years later, still playing adult hockey, which means that like with a competitive league, you would train at least once a week and have a league game on a Saturday. So like, you know, it's quite a big time commitment as well. But yeah, like I said before, I don't know any different. And there are girls on my team who I learnt to play hockey with, who I now still play with, and some are even like my bridesmaids at my wedding. So
Amazing.
I just can't see my life without it at all.
Talk me through some of the, not just influences, but what has playing competitive hockey given you? How has it sort of shaped you as a person, do you think?
I think it's taught me commitment, loyalty, like team working. I think I'm much better like problem solver. I feel even now as an adult, like I always have the opportunity to learn new skills, to be challenged. And I think above all, it's given me community and friendship. Like those are the kind of things that I think keep you exercising, keep you motivated. I love exercise. I love playing hockey, but it's the people that you do it with. And I think sport does that. Sport builds community, togetherness, and if you don't do it, I would really encourage to do some kind of sport or something that you can meet those kinds of people with, because like trust me, they'll be your friends for life.
That's so true. And I think when we look at females in sport, I mean, traditionally there's such a huge drop off of girls playing sport or getting to a certain age and then not playing it as an adult. Sport is kind of, for the women's side, gained a lot of momentum over, I'd say, the last few years, maybe the last decade. What would you say some of the changes have been?
There's just a huge surge in attention, focus, like media. I don't remember 10 years ago ever thinking, oh my God, the FIFA World Cup is coming up, must watch Jill Scott playing in it. I probably couldn't have named a single person, and that's like from one woman to another, let alone and like outside of that. And there's a lot more funding in like the investment and the investors. And like the more you see someone doing something on TV, in the newspaper, on social media, those are the kind of role models that like I wish I was lucky that my parents played so much sport, so they were my role models. But now I feel like there's so many more role models out there. Like if you think of Iona Mayer, the rugby player.
She's amazing, isn't
she's
she?
So cool.
She's such a boss.
Yeah, absolute girl boss. Like Bristol Bears have never had, well actually, no female rugby game has ever had that kind of attendance.
Really?
And people are talking about it. I've got friends who, like, when they, after their rugby game, have been like, have you seen it? And I'm like, yes. Oh my God, yes. Or things like a hockey side of it, the Rio Olympics, when the women's hockey team won gold. Then you have someone like Sam Quek go and do, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here. And then people like Jill Scott will be now on a question of sport. So there's so many more role models out there now.
Yeah, and it's closer to home, like it's more mainstream as well. It's not just on the sidelines, which is amazing. You had the amazing opportunity to go to the Paris Olympics. Tell us a little bit about that, and from the women's perspective, like what you saw.
So funny enough, I went with girls from my hockey team and we went to watch hockey, but we saw other bits of sport as well. The Paris Olympics, just getting the opportunity to go to any Olympics is incredible. Like when London 2012 was here, that was fab too. But when like Paris, I think is extra special, particularly from a women's sport perspective. It's the first time where there were equal numbers of participants for both women and men. And in fact, in the GB team, there were more female athletes than there were male athletes, which I think is a win.
Incredible.
Of the female athletes, 9 of the women actually gave birth during that 4-year cycle. So imagine you're pregnant, you give birth, you recover, and then you manage to train and perform at elite level all in a 4-year turnaround. Like, that's just incredible. And then you can look at like the behind the scenes. So for instance, the International Olympic Committee, back in 2013, there were no women on the board.
That's not even that long ago.
Which is, it's a bit of a joke if I'm honest. Whereas in Paris, 41% of the committee were women, which, yes, it's not perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better. And then if you look at the commentator side, 40% of the commentators for the Paris Olympics were women, which I think is incredible as well, bearing in mind that's an 80% increase on Tokyo 2020.
It's incredible. And like you said, it's just hearing, seeing, like thinking that actually that could be me. It doesn't have to be in the playing of the sport, but just being in and around sport. It's just such a powerful thing, I think.
Like seeing like Jessica Ennis-Hill being there and talking about sport and talking about like the next generation coming through and thinking, you've won a lot of gold medals. Like, it's just...
She's a personal favourite of mine. I love her.
A lot of love for her. But it's just... I think it will be exciting to see what happens for Los Angeles. Like, if that's where we were at, how the difference between Tokyo and Paris, imagine how great it could be in 4 years.
Amazing. So that's kind of a really positive way to look at what's going on in sport, and we just touched on the Olympics now. But if we think there's probably still a lot of challenges that exist, maybe from stigmas that are probably still existing in young women today. What would you say some of those challenges or stigmas are?
I think the idea that women are weaker, less athletic, less skillful, comparisons on appearance, mentions on marital status or family life, rubbish phrases like girl press ups.
Yeah.
Throw like a girl. Yeah, but it makes you feel cross. Those kind of phrases and those kind of terminology is really damaging.
Yeah, it's awful.
Like, how can you have
awful.
a positive impact on like young girls and young women coming through if people still talk like rubbish like that?
I saw a panel, and I forget her surname. Her name's Emily. She's a Olympic weightlifter. She's super strong. I can't remember her surname, but she was on a panel, and someone legitimately in the audience put their hand up and said, like, "Oh, you're looking really nice today. Like, love your makeup and hair." Something
no one says
like that.
If you're a male athlete.
And she was such a boss as well. So she replied, like, "Are we still talking about this now? I'm on a panel to talk about my sport. Are we still talking about this?" And it just completely shut down the person that asked the question. But I just was outraged.
Well, Andy Murray said something similar in one of his interviews. He, like, in a really positive way. One of the journalists, I can't for the life of me remember exactly what they said, but they basically said, "How do you feel about being the first athlete to do X?" And he was like, no. The first male athlete. Did you know that the Williams sisters have already done this? And they're like, "Oh, well."
Amazing.
Yeah, and you're just like, you need to shut down that narrative. If people don't shut it down, it continues and it breeds.
Yeah, 100%. What do you think that we can do to help challenge that narrative or start to make a bit of a wider change so that female sport is not almost seen as like this subsection of sport overall?
I think we have to change our language. Sometimes it's really subtle. For instance, like the Women's Soccer League is fantastic at the moment and it's everywhere, but why is it called the Premier League and the Women's Soccer League? Why is there a need to put the word women's in there just to show like differentiation? And that's supposed to be a really positive image, but it still has a little like sexism dig in there.
I've got a really annoying one myself, which is Ironman, because I would really love to do an Ironman one day. But why are we still calling it Ironman? And people say, "Oh, it's the brand." But even when you finish the race, they say, "Well done, you're now officially an Ironman." It's like, I'm not.
Well, even in the gym, like they call the 15 kilo bar the ladies bar. One, being called a lady in the gym, it feels really patronizing anyway. But no, it's just the 15 kilo bar. Like those kind of things. Like there's a study from Cambridge University Press in 2016 where it says media coverage really dictates people's opinion. And when male athletes are spoken about in sport, they use the word dominate, beat, win, strong, fast, athletic. And often when they talk about female athletes, they say age, married, not married, pregnant, strives, participates. Just like they try really hard, thank you for showing up. But if we can take those bits of language out, which people are trying to say positively, but it doesn't come across like that, then it will help. And those kind of role models, like we mentioned earlier, those are the kind of people that you want your daughters looking up to, we want to look up to. And all it takes is people keep challenging the narrative. Somebody says that, there's no need for an argument. You just turn around and you say, no, it's this. And that could just change that little bit of dialogue. So if everyone can change one small thing, I think it makes a huge amount of difference. Yes, more funding for women's sport, more media coverage will encourage better spectators, and then it gets more funding and you get better facilities. But I think the everyday person, if they can change their own narrative and what they put out there and then call other people out on it, it will encourage more change.
100%. I think we're forever calling out things in the gym.
Yeah.
And like you said, it starts on that smaller level. It might only be one interaction at the gym, but then that person might then sort of stop and think, actually, I shouldn't have said that, or I'm going to change the way I think about X, Y, or
Definitely.
Z. And then it spirals on from there, doesn't it? Obviously, the media has a huge impact, but I think day to day, if we can all start with
I think everyone can
small
make one
things.
small change.
Exactly. Jem, I feel like you've had such a positive experience in sport, myself included, but I know that I was saying at the beginning, that drop off that you get, or even women that don't even get the chance to experience what being involved in sport in a team feels like. As it's International Women's Day, what would you say to that woman that's thinking about it but maybe unsure or not that up for it because they don't think they could maybe access it?
I think be open to trying new things. No one just falls into the sport that they are going to love. I'm awful at throwing and catching. Netball was never going to be my sport. But you don't have to do all sports, and it doesn't have to be a team one. It can be, there are so many sports out there. Just try something that's local. Take a friend with you if it builds your confidence. Sport is there to build self-esteem and to build resilience. All it takes is just one small step, confident step. And if you don't like it, try something different and try and be a positive influence to the people around you. So if you're in sport and you know someone who would like to but is nervous to, is there something you could do to help? Could I go with that person to a local tennis community?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't play tennis, but if it helps that person get into something, maybe I could do that too. So I think the people who are sporty could maybe extend a helping hand, and those that aren't, just try something. Be open to it, and you'll never know what you might find.
I love that so much. And having two daughters myself, I couldn't think of a better person to say those things. So thank you so much, Jem.
Welcome.
Nice to have you on.
Thanks, Ames.
Next up, we're joined by Coulson's coach, Daisy, whose challenging journey to become a mum led her to find her why and why that's so important. So welcome, Daisy.
Hi, thanks for having me.
No, welcome. Your journey to becoming a mum wasn't an easy one. I know I've known you for years, but just tell the viewers a little bit more about the journey to becoming a mum.
Mm-hmm. So me and my husband, we wanted to start a family back in the beginning of 2020 when the pandemic started. And we were very relaxed about it. We were like, let's just see what happens and hope we feel pregnant. We were really surprised and we fell pregnant straight away. And kind of got a positive pregnancy test, got really excited, got quite ahead of ourselves, I suppose. Before then, I hadn't really had anyone or known anyone really that had miscarriages or pregnancy losses, or I wasn't at an age where a lot of my friends were having children, so it didn't really come about a lot. I had a miscarriage when I was about 8 weeks pregnant, I think. It's a blip, these things happen. It was just a random one-off. Then went on and had another miscarriage. And then I just knew something wasn't right. Thought I'd had a third miscarriage, but actually it turned out I had had an ectopic pregnancy, which was quite scary at the time because they couldn't find the pregnancy for ages. So I had multiple scans, multiple tests, and eventually they found it in one of my fallopian tubes. It was at a stage where luckily it wasn't big enough that I didn't have to have my fallopian tube completely removed, but I did have to go and have chemotherapy, or a chemotherapy drug basically injected into me to kill the cells. So I had that. I had multiple blood tests every week until the pregnancy basically died. So they had to check your pregnancy hormone, your HCG level, and you hope that it falls kind of every week rather than gets bigger, because obviously your fallopian tube can rupture at any point if the pregnancy continues to grow. So all in all, yeah, that was basically our 2020, which was mad.
So intense.
Yeah, in the middle of that pandemic, like I said, I couldn't have Ant come in with me, my partner come in with me to hospital appointments. Everything was done on my own. I had to kind of, always leave the hospital and tell him we'd had a miscarriage or something else had happened. So it was a pretty intense year.
Yeah, so sorry to hear that. It's
No, it's fine.
hard time.
Yeah, it was
so
definitely
what
a
happened
hard
from
time.
there?
So after that, and I don't know if they've changed the laws now or they're trying to change it, because women won't be allowed tests unless they have 3 consecutive miscarriages. And I know there's a lot of things that, what's it called? The word I'm looking for. They're trying to change that and make it happen sooner, because it's very hard on your mental health. So after that, I went and saw a specialist, had loads of tests done. She found out that I actually had a blood clotting disorder, which I'm born with. So it was a gene mutation, which I had no idea about. And it's come from one of my parents. So I'm only born with it on one side, which basically means my blood is way more likely to clot. With pregnancies, obviously, blood is pumped around the body a lot faster. And it means that you just basically won't have a very strong placenta, or is likely to have a clot within the beginning bit of growing the pregnancy. She also found out that I had, actually not through a scan, but through having hysteroscopy. So I was put to sleep, and she literally put a camera inside my womb, found out that I had a really heart-shaped womb. So it's actually amazing what doctors can do and how it can work. But they basically opened up my womb. So they created more space within my womb for the pregnancy to grow. Otherwise, I'd be more likely to have a miscarriage later on in the pregnancy. So we did all that. I had loads more hormones and everything. And then I was kind of given the all clear to try again. Fell pregnant. I had to have a blood thinner injected into my tummy every day throughout my pregnancy. So if you imagine being 9 months pregnant and trying
to find
some space to inject this blood thinner into your tummy, which was really quite tough. And throughout that pregnancy, obviously I was high risk. I was extremely nervous. I actually didn't tell people I was pregnant. So I was still coaching, and I was wearing big baggy jumpers, and I think it got to about 25 weeks, and I was like, I'm going to have to start telling people now. So I had that throughout the whole pregnancy, had multiple scans and checks and everything.
Did you feel like that pregnancy was different, or were you just still hyper nervous?
I was so nervous. I didn't want anyone to say congratulations to me, and that's why I didn't like telling people, because I didn't want to celebrate it. I remember going to hospital to have my son and still thinking, I don't think I'm coming home with a baby. It actually makes me quite sad, but I had to block it out. I couldn't imagine being a parent. I didn't read one parenting book. So when we had my son, I was a bit thrown into the deep end, because I was like, what's breastfeeding? How do I do this? How do I change a nappy? But I really, mentally, I just had to block it out completely. I didn't buy anything until I was about 35 weeks pregnant. And then finally I allowed myself to go, okay, well, we're going to have a baby in 5 weeks maybe. So we'll start planning things. So yeah, it was a real mental struggle for me. I think that pregnancy was. It was hard to celebrate it. But when he came about, it was, the best thing in the world. So, it was a silver lining, I suppose.
Yeah, amazing. And then what happened after you had Rudy? How was that transition to kind of being anxious, him being there? Did you feel like you relaxed into
so much more? Yeah, I was so happy when I had Rudy. I just remember kind of the first 3 months, I did not care about the sleep deprivation. I did not care about feeling like the worst, you know what it's like when you've had a baby and your body is just in bits. I didn't care. Like, I was just genuinely so happy to be a parent. It's all I'd ever wanted, and I really didn't think it was something that was going to be given to me. I think I'd really put that in my mindset. I had some spotting with Rudy when I was about 8 weeks pregnant, thought we were having another miscarriage. And I remember me and Ant talking and being like, I can't go through this again. So we were like, we'll adopt if this doesn't work out this time. So yeah, I really did think it wasn't going to be for us. So yeah, I was incredibly happy when I had him.
And then how was the kind of newborn stages? Because I know that
So
Sebi came quite quickly after.
So with Rudy, it was fine. Like, but then I fell pregnant again, surprisingly, 5 months postpartum. And that was a massive shock to the system because I wasn't expecting that to happen.
I remember you told me, we went to the park and you had like a tiny newborn. You're like, by the way, I'm pregnant.
Literally.
Like, whoa.
And at the time, all we could do was laugh because we were like, well, isn't this funny? Like, we've waited so long to be parents and we didn't think it would happen. And suddenly we're having another one. And everyone laughed and everyone, you know, was like, what is going on? You've just had a baby. But, you know, it was the situation that we were in and we were so happy that it could happen again. And then I had Sebi and I had to have an emergency C-section with him because I was unwell and he was unwell. So we had an emergency C-section and I actually found my postpartum recovery really hard after having him. A very different experience to when I had Rudy because I had 2 babies, literally.
Would you say more physically or mentally hard?
Both. Physically hard because I'd had a C-section. So I found my body obviously took longer to repair or recover, sorry. I wasn't allowed to carry anything for 6 weeks, which is obviously normal once you've had a C-section. But I had Rudy, who was 14 months at the time, but he was still crawling. My husband was out at work from 5 a.m. and didn't come home till like 9 o'clock at night. He just started a really stressful job. So I felt very isolated, I think, in some ways. And I just didn't know how to juggle the two. I remember kind of thinking, how can you want something so much but it also be the hardest thing you've ever had to do? And there were days where I was like, this is impossible. I can't do this job. And the mum guilt and everything like that came along with it. So yeah, both. I'd say the recovery mentally and physically was a lot more challenging.
And then after you'd had, well, it was quite a few months after you had Sebi, you had to have another surgery because you had some hernias, right?
Yeah, so I had a herniated belly button anyway, which we knew needed repairing. And I went into surgery 6 months after having Sebi, and I came out of the surgery and they're like, you had 3 hernias that we didn't realise. So that was a much bigger surgery than I had anticipated. The recovery was meant to be just 6 weeks. It ended up being 3 months. And again, I had to suddenly juggle having to, a 6-month-old and a, whatever Rudy was, a 1.5 year old, not being able to pick them up, not being able to do everything for them that I would have necessarily been able to do. So yeah, I had to really, I'm so thankful for my parents because they helped out so much. I moved in there for a while and they helped out with the kids. But I couldn't work out. Throughout my pregnancies, I didn't work out as much as I would like to. Obviously, postpartum, you hardly work out as much as you can or you want to. So I think I was struggling with a real big mental battle. And I forgot what you asked.
No, I was just saying about going back from the surgeries and with the physical and then the mental side of it. But because I know that you've always been really active from a young age. You've done sport and then dancer. So how did you find going from that to then suddenly not being able to train, and how did that journey look like to get back into training?
I didn't realise how much I needed exercise for my mental health until this happened, because I've always had it. So I swam competitively when I was younger, then I went on to do a dance degree, then obviously coaching. Like, I've just always been able to train. My body has never failed me, and I think when this happened, I felt like a failure. I felt like my body is failing me. How can I be healthy and give my body what it needs to, and it's still not working? And And I think not having exercise as my release, suddenly it was just such a shock to my system. I think I've always dealt with anxiety quite a lot, and it's the one place where I can work out and I don't have anxious thoughts, so it gives my brain a little bit of a breather 100%. From that anxiety. And I think, when I wasn't able to work out and being forced into this position, it really did make my mental health suffer a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's what did then getting back into training do for you, and how did you even do that? Because obviously you had, like you said, Rudy was over a year, and then Sebi was 6 months, and you kind of weren't properly working at the time. So how did you even go about doing that, carving out time or knowing what to do to get back?
So to begin with, when I wasn't allowed to exercise, because I only actually was given the all clear to exercise when I started working here. I think I had just started and I was like, okay, you can get back into it.
I remember because you had to do your initiation.
Yeah,
and you're like, I've actually just recovered from surgery.
I haven't done anything. Please be nice. I knew I couldn't train, so that was just a no-go, and I had to accept that. I really took on eating healthy and changing like my diet. So the things that I could do was cook. So my mum and dad were around to help a lot with the kids, and there was stuff I couldn't do with them. So I thought, well, do you know what? I can cook everyone a nice meal. So I really kind of enjoyed cooking. That was one thing that really helped me, and it gave me an hour to myself in the kitchen, and kind of giving back to people when they'd been helping me. So I really enjoyed that. Walking as well, I was able to walk. So as much as I could, I know it's hard when you've got newborns, but just like getting them in the buggy and just getting out. So yeah, walking, cooking, reading as well. Things that I find relaxing that aren't exercise, I kind of definitely had to turn to in those times. And then getting back into exercise was literally when I joined as a coach at T2FIT. So that's when I was kind of given the all clear, and it was just a very slow journey to get back into it. And I think my ego, you have to put it at the door. You're not going to, I wasn't going to be able to do any of the training that I used to be able to do straight away. So it was just step by step, really.
Well, you've had a pretty big journey since. So from joining T2FIT to where you are now, obviously you've done a lot of training. You've done a High Rocks with me, and you're going to do the Brighton Marathon in April. That's a pretty big change from where you were, like not that long ago, literally a year ago.
Yeah.
What has training done for you now in that time?
I honestly think being in a gym and being surrounded by people that have similar aspirations and goals, but also where they find training is, the one thing that empowers them, or their hobby, or the thing that they really enjoy doing. I think being in that field again, because when I was going through all of this, I was self-employed. So I think having a team alongside you really helps you kind of motivate yourself and believe in yourself and know that things are achievable. I think I would definitely stop questioning the can I, and more just, Daisy, just do it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? And just taking it day by day, I suppose. I think just small steps to build that strength back up.
Mm-hmm. You said, really touched me at one point, that you felt like your body was failing you. For anyone out there who's thinking, my body's failing me, whether that's coming back from pregnancy or an illness or an injury, and they're trying to get back to it, but they're feeling like their body is failing them. As it's International Women's Day, what would you say to that person?
I would probably say it's not your fault, because I think there's a lot of guilt that can come with that. It's a moment, it's a blip, and it's a time that will pass. Be kind to yourself. Do things that will make you feel good. If it's not exercise, and if it's not something that you're able to do at that time, find something else that will give you that similar release, and take it day by day, and know that, like I said, it is a moment that will pass. And I think you will be so proud of yourself when you look back at those times and realize, wow, I've gone through something, and actually come out the other side, and I'm stronger and I'm more resilient than I ever thought I would be. So just hang on in there, and it does get better.
Amazing. Thank you so much. You've been
Thanks,
so
Ames.
open and honest and vulnerable, and I'm sure that so many people listening to the podcast will relate or just really think that your story's quite a big one. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Next up, we're joined by Pearlie's coach, Alex, who after struggling a little bit post-baby, looked to supplements to balance out her energy and her hormone levels. And she's going to be revealing exactly what she did. So welcome, Alex.
Hi.
Alex, talk me through a little bit about what your journey was like after you had Zachary, some of the struggles that you faced, as well as all of the good stuff, obviously.
So it was actually, I suppose, breastfeeding kind of after a year into breastfeeding, my hormone levels, I was starting noticing a real difference for me, because I never really struggled when I had periods. I was always Alex, but I just felt very different. Skin changes, obviously super fatigued, and I just was like, I need something to help. And my mood swings were just crazy compared to what they were prior to having a baby.
Do you feel like you kind of realised that difference in yourself, or did it not quite feel like you, or
I didn't realise, like I just felt very different. I think it was the moods, how emotional I was getting. Like obviously when you first have a baby, it's very natural to be emotional, but I was just very emotional, and I just noticed a real change when I was hormonal.
Mm-hmm. And kind of looking at supplements then, how did that even come about? What made you think, actually, I need to kind of do something about the way I'm feeling?
Yeah, it's weird really, because Harry, my partner, he's actually really into supplements. So we do like discuss a lot of stuff, but I just think I was like, I need something to help me that's going to help balance this like hormonal like mood swings and my skin and everything. So obviously Dr. Google was like first, and then I started looking more into what can help you balance like your hormones out after. I think because I breastfed for a long time, I think that obviously has a big impact on your body. Mm-hmm. So I think it was time I needed to look into something.
Mm-hmm. So what were your three that you think had a pretty big impact on you? We take them one by one. What would be the first one?
So I always took vitamin D religiously prior to falling pregnant as well, and I always think that was like a key. I don't know why in my head I was like, I think it's because I always took vitamin D. So that was one, obviously because of we don't actually get much sunlight here, so your moods, we do get sunlight, but you know what I mean, the weather is not sunny.
It's not enough.
24.
The UV is not enough at all, is it, compared to other countries? That
will naturally help you lift your mood. So vitamin D. And my mum always has gone on at me about taking evening primrose oil. So from a young age, when I first like started my periods and stuff, mum just drilled it into me. But then I kind of was like, I don't need it. I don't need to take it. But I actually believe every woman should take evening primrose oil. I just think the difference I've noticed when I'm now due on, I'm not as bloated. My breasts don't get nowhere near as like heavy as what they used to. I just think it's an amazing supplement for women.
Is that something you take
all
the time,
so
like year long then?
Two a day with a meal, or like when I remember to take them, but 2 a day. And I think it is, and a high strength one, not with any added rubbish in it, a high strength one. Mm-hmm. And then my third one was magnesium. I think because sleep, obviously with a baby / toddler, you're very sleep deprived. So obviously, especially as well if you're working out, your muscles obviously get tired, you feel fatigued. So magnesium was my next sort of go-to. They were just the three. I'm sure there's loads more, but they were the three that I just took. I think when I researched more and looked into them, they were the three that sort of stood out.
I think it's so interesting that you talked at the beginning quite openly about how you felt and not feeling like yourself, and it's amazing that you've obviously there's more to it than just the supplements, but the supplements have made you find a bit more balance and feeling a bit more like yourself. But going back to how you were postnatally, I think a lot of women out there, if they were to admit it, have struggled more than they would like to admit. Mm-hmm. What would you say to people that are like maybe even struggling to come to terms with it, or even have the conversation about how they're feeling postnatally?
Yeah, that's so. I think a lot of, I don't know, like supplements besides that, like that's just something that worked for me and might not work for everyone, but I do believe having that extra sort of help, it's like exercise, isn't it? I think as a new mum, you don't need to come straight into the gym. Take the time, go out for a walk, get some fresh air. That, I would say, that is the first step to like, because it is tough, and especially when like your life's been very different prior to having a baby. But I would say get out, get some fresh air. Obviously, the supplements, that's just a thing that worked for me. But I do believe if people are lacking in diet because you don't eat great, like, and I'm one of those, like when you miss meals, I think, when you're a new mum, because you're so consumed with this little baby that you miss meals. So that's the other added to having the supplement as well.
Yeah, definitely. For me, when I had my first daughter, getting outside for a walk every day, plus having a shower.
Yeah,
I worked out they were the two things, like as a bare minimum, that I had to do.
Yeah, and
if I did those, I just instantly felt so much better. And the days where, like, 'cause my partner worked long hours, when he was out for a lot of the day and early evening, if I hadn't have showered or gone for a walk, then I just noticed it.
I know. I love. I mean, walking for me was like my therapy. I don't know, like. Even now, it's in my head, I've got to get out and walk. But that was just, I felt so much better once I got out for that walk, and I would like come back and I'd feel like me again. Because finding the time when you first have a baby, you can't just pop to the gym unless your childcare is fantastic. It's just like, get out, do that, and then you come back feeling really refreshed.
What was your journey like to getting back into more of a like traditional gym setting then? When did you do that?
So 6 months postpartum, funny story, I actually still had my gym membership up in London when I was working there. And I don't know if most people, but Third Space. So it was a very nice gym. And I really didn't want to give it up. But obviously, realistically, I am not going to go into London every day to train. So I really used like I think I gave my sort of 30 days notice, and I really used that. I was like, right, I want to make the time to go and use it now. So that was my first time stepping into, I actually went and did a class in Third Space, and I remember feeling so like weird. It felt so weird because Zach was only 6 months, but my body felt ready then. I would never have stepped in. Obviously I walked from about 3 weeks, but stepping into a gym environment was 6 months postpartum, and I was ready. And I still felt my body, like where I had a C-section, it still had a few twinges, but I felt like it was ready. Anything prior to that, I wouldn't have been ready, but 6 months was good. And then again, obviously finding time. And that's why I would say like walking was one of my biggest form of exercising. And I don't just walk, like I power walk. And with Zach in the buggy, I was up the hills. And I think my weight just kind of started, I felt more like myself because the weight was just kind of falling off me. And then actually, probably since joining like T2, I think I started, before coming on board as a coach, I actually jumped on the coursing program. So that was quite good to have a bit more consistency. And then fitness is back now.
Amazing.
I'm back.
talk me through, like, that's 3 now? Exactly.
Yeah, he's 3 now,
Talk me through, like, because that's quite a journey to where you are now with your health and fitness. How do you feel like life is now, and balancing things as well?
A lot better. I struggled between like 18 months and him being 2. Yeah, I really struggled through that time because I wasn't back at work. All my like mum friends that I made, they were back at work. Zachary was changing and my life wasn't. So I actually really struggled. That's probably why, again, with the whole looking into supplements thing, because I just obviously was a little bit down in myself because I had a purpose but didn't have a purpose, if that made sense. So yeah, I think.
So you're almost looking for like things that were going to get you back to you, and how you would normally feel. And the funny thing is, I actually, before even thinking about being a coach at T2FIT, I did actually email to get myself back. I was like, I need to get myself back, and I think the only way, and I heard that T2 was really good, and I thought it looks like my type of gym. I think I looked at it on Instagram, so I actually inquired to come
become a member.
Amazing.
It's one of those moments where that kind of happened, and then Pearly was opening, so it was like an amazing opportunity. But that was how I wanted to get myself back, because I wasn't doing what I was doing prior. I like worked out all the time. I
100%.
didn't like all the time, and then I just went from that to like nothing to power walking. Obviously an odd gym session every now and then, but nothing to what I was doing before. So yeah, coming back, I feel much better as a person, because that 18 months, 2 years with Zach, I found tough. There were some hard times, like my skin changed. I don't know if it was stress, like I felt super stressed. I was seeing my partner works long hours. It was just like, and then now I have a purpose for me again. So it's me and Zachary now, where before it was all Zachary. Now I actually have my time. And then I'm probably a much better mum for it. Not that I was a bad mum. That sounds
No, but I think it's important. I think mums don't talk about it enough.
Yeah.
Because we talked about it with Bridge as well before. You know, you can be a great mum and you can do things for yourself and then be a better mum.
Yeah.
I think there's no shame or harm in talking about that. I think we should talk about it more.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so it's been, T2's been such a good thing for me. So
Amazing.
for me, everything's just great. Like balance is sort of fits in with my life. The balance is really good now.
Amazing.
Where before it was just very much hectic, not much structure. Now there's a really good balance with home, work and everything. So yeah.
Amazing. For women, because there'll be loads of them that are struggling with that kind of road back postpartum, but also just struggling with finding who they are again. As it's International Women's Day, what would you say to someone that is struggling?
Ooh. I would say don't be afraid to ask for help, and be a bit selfish maybe. That's probably where it's like, put you first, because one day our babies are going to grow up to be 18 and they're out the door, and then you've given up all that time. So be a little bit selfish. Maybe that's what I'll say.
I love that. You even said selfish in a way that was like you felt bad about it, but
Yeah,
it's a good thing.
But I think
it's
you
a
do
good
have
thing.
to be selfish.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, you do.
Amazing. Thanks so much,
Thank
Alex.
you. Thanks for having me.
Next up, we're joined by Pearly's coach Mel, who completely transformed her body and completed a high rocks less than a year after having her second baby. So, welcome, Mel.
Hey Ames, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
This is a bit different today.
I know. So you've had quite the journey after having Jude.
Yep.
Talk me through what that looked like, being pregnant, and then in those early postpartum days. What got you from that to then suddenly doing all these amazing things?
So I suppose, I don't know if it's a bit of a midlife crisis. I'd also just turned 40, 2 children. But before Jude, I was training. I trained all the way for both of my pregnancies. And then when that had to stop, that was quite difficult, obviously, in that process of actually having Jude. So postpartum, life was totally different to before. As I say, when I was pregnant, I could train, I could still do what I wanted. But you get like that lull where you're not really sure what's going on. You've got this newborn, what do you do? So postpartum life was eventful. It was obviously very busy, 2 children. Contained a lot of steps, a lot of getting Jude in the buggy, out for a nap, takeaway coffees, definitely a piece of cake. And that was sort of, that part of first having Jude.
And then that, I guess, is like a very routine based, you get up, you get Luna to preschool, then you're out with Jude.
Exactly.
How did you go from that to even getting back to training? And because we were talking about it with Alex, like steps and getting out fresh air is amazing, but that's very different to getting back to training at the gym.
Totally. And real honesty, it was missing the training. It was missing that bit for me. Yes, I could walk. Yes, I could step. Yes, I could be in the fresh air, clear my mind. But for me to actually be the best version of me, I need my training. So it must have been when he was 4 months, I think. I was like, I need to step back to the gym. And it was more of a need than a want, if I'm really honest.
Mm-hmm. And what did that look like in those early days? Did you were back here?
Back here, came back down
for
here.
Some sessions?
Contacted Cass. I was like, can I come back and train? He was like, yep, get involved in the sessions. And then I think I must have started with 2 strength sessions, then added the third. And then, it sort of went from there, really. It was getting the consistency back that was the most important thing for me.
Mm-hmm. How did that start to make you feel once you had got back into some sessions, a couple of weeks, then months of training? What did that feel like?
It was, honestly, it was great. Great for me, great for my mind. Honestly, though, a little bit frustrating. Had a new body that I obviously had to try and come to terms with. Yes, I'd had a baby before, but this was the second baby. So again, my body had changed again. And it was just, trying to understand what I could do, in that space of time. Because as I say, Jude was only 4 months when I came back as well.
Mm-hmm. And then fast forward to less than a year ahead, you obviously had High Rocks and the amazing body transformation, which we'll get onto.
Yeah.
What was booked first? What did you just, why 2 so close together?
So, I know. So
how did that come about?
High Rocks was booked first. And the reason that High Rocks was booked was because me and Frankie actually were supposed to do it the year I found out I was pregnant. So obviously we couldn't do it. So that was the first thing I said to Frankie. Once I'd had Jude, I wanted to book an event, have something to do that year. So that's how High Rocks came about. From then, the other thing that I wanted to do, I'd always had that transformation in the back of my mind. Again, Frankie was the one that had inspired me. Cass was always like, Mel, you can do it. I never knew when the right time was. And I think Cass just literally threw out there. He was like, let's do it. We've got, 18 weeks till High Rocks. We need 16 weeks. Let's do it. And it ended up being transformation, 16 weeks, a week off, and then High Rocks.
So that was say 18 weeks out. When you embarked on this journey, what did your life then become? Talk me through some of the things you did, what a typical day looked like, for example.
So obviously it all became about the prep. I had to become selfish to get the job done. I say the job done, but it's something that was really important to me. If I was going to do this transformation, I was going all in. So it became, again, a routine, which is obviously what I need. Food prep, preschool drop-offs, preschool pickups, training had to fit around that. I also had family life to throw in there as well. It became very busy, and work. I was back to work by that point as well. Mm-hmm. It was very busy, but I look back at it now and actually don't know how I did it. But it was good for me.
You were so focused at that time. I really remember you nothing was going to derail you from doing what I remember. Sometimes we had sessions here together because I was doing a bit of training with you here, and you would go to Pure Gym after to get your steps in because it was dark. I think you were really committed. It's
because it meant so much. And as I say, if I was going to do it, I was going all in. Mm-hmm. There was no, I'll do it half-heartedly. And I actually wanted to see where I could take my body.
On that journey, like you said, your life was crazy busy, right?
Yeah.
What were some of the biggest challenges, mentally and also just physically?
Mentally was definitely the mum guilt. That was hard, but I had to do it for me. And for me, that then made me a better person to be around for my children, Rob, my family, my friends. So that mentally, that was really hard. Obviously, hunger as well, that gets you. Mm-hmm. You then get short-tempered, things like that. It isn't anybody's fault. It's just that being in that deficit. Mm-hmm. And then physically, just the demands on the body. It's having that energy to go and do that strength session that is so important. Or even more to the point, getting on that Stairmaster.
Which you did, and you were so committed to.
Yeah.
At what point did you kind of, on that journey, think, actually, this is actually going okay or better than I thought it might, and I think I can really... Or did you have any... What I'm trying to say is, did you have any moment of doubt or, no, I don't know if I can do this, or...
No, it actually got to the end, and I did say to Cass, if High Rocks wasn't there, I think I would have pushed it a bit more. I had more in the tank. I mean, I don't know where that would have taken me, but it definitely was... it's really hard to describe, but it was definitely me. That transformation was for me. Mm-hmm. And I definitely watch this space. Eventually we'll do another one.
Amazing. And then doing high rocks, was it 2 weeks after?
A week.
A week
We literally
after.
had
A
week
week
in
after.
between.
Wow. How did you find that? It's a very different kind of challenge.
Very different. Obviously, had a very lean body. Still felt strong. But the training wasn't specifically catered to high rocks, if that makes sense. So, yeah, it was a process that it came out of the transformation, if that made sense. The body that I had, that is what was taking me through high rocks. Yes, it probably could have been stronger, but it was totally lean. And I dare tell you what, that definitely helped me with those burpee broad jumps.
Yeah. I'm sure Franks would say as well.
Yeah.
So, off the back of doing those amazing challenges, how did you feel? Like, you'd done them,
Yeah, proud.
you looked amazing, you'd done a high rocks. How did you feel?
Proud. 40, mum of 2. No, it's a big thing. I think when you're a mum, you know, your children do come first. That my children, they do, but also I am a priority. I need to be the best version of me for my children to have, you know, the best mum.
Yeah, 100%. And what were the people around you? Did they, because I think obviously what you did was a very focused effort and challenge. Did you feel like you had the support from people around you, and how did you make that work?
Definitely. I mean, there was loads of support, you know, my T2FIT family, Rob, my husband, my mum and dad, Frankie, my sister. The support was there totally, but obviously you do get those people that don't understand. You know, they're like, why would you do that? But it was a case of blocking that out. I didn't need to hear that negativity. And to be fair, it didn't matter what anybody said. I was doing it anyway. But I couldn't have done it without the support of my family, especially from a training perspective and looking after the children.
When you got people saying, why would you do that? Where do you think that's coming from?
I don't know. It's could it be a jealousy thing? I don't know. Is it something that, you know, it's something they'd like to tap into but maybe can't? Again, you need to find that purpose to tap into it. Or is it just a basic lack of understanding? You know, but it's hard to hear that negativity, but then it's reminding yourself of your why and why you're doing it.
100%. And I think, I mean, I looked at you, complete inspiration after doing it. High rocks.
Yep.
You're actually going for round 2.
Yes.
Not so long ago away now, sorry.
I know. I think we're at the 4-week mark.
That's gone really quickly. How are you feeling about doing it round 2?
Yeah, good. Obviously, different training perspective this time. There's no transformation before. Really excited. I'm actually doing that with Coach Alex. Yeah, very excited about that. Excited for round 2 to see what we can do. So, yeah.
And you get to go away for it as well, which
We
is
do.
a little bit nicer than the UK.
It definitely is. A little bit warmer.
What's next after that? What are you going to do after high rocks? Do you feel like because with the challenges and obviously transformation, high rocks, do you feel like there's a pressure to keep doing stuff like that, or are you going to do it just because that's what you want to do?
Yeah, definitely. That's actually a really good question. So I actually never realised how an event or a goal actually impacts me. I do need something. You know, in the past, I've always been happy to train for my body, train for my mind. But a goal for me, when I get that goal, I go for it. So I definitely think I need something else. So you saying that to me, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm thinking I would actually like to do something with Rob.
Love
I
that.
mean, I know, you know, you've done it with Coach Dylan. You guys.
I thought you were going to say Tom then.
No,
I was
going to say,
he's
next. You know, you and Coach Dylan, didn't you? You took on Athex. I think I'd like to get the husband involved.
I love that. And he's back training now.
He's back training, so maybe it might be a couple's goal. And also, I would like to do another high rocks eventually with Frankie to try and beat our time. Unfinished business.
Love that. Mel, you've been on such a transformation, and I know you said at the beginning you battled a little bit with how your body was post-baby, but you've gone through such an incredible transformation. I think so many mums will be able to relate to that. As it's International Women's Day, what would you say to mums post-baby that are struggling with their body image, how they feel about themselves, and just making themselves feel better?
Don't be too harsh on yourself. you have done an incredible thing. You've grown a baby, you've had that baby, and we're all too quick to look at how we were before. You know, accept that new body that you have. Yes, it is different, but if you've got something that you want to do, do it. You have to do it. Give your goal a purpose. It makes you want it more. And honestly, I know it sounds cheesy, but if I can do it, anybody can do it. You just have to want it.
Mel, you've been so inspiring. Thank you so much for
Thanks
coming
for
on.
having me, Amy.
Surprise! Of course, we weren't going to let Amy interview herself. So I am here to give you the lowdown on some of the challenges Amy has taken part in over the years and how that has built her resilient mindset. So Amy, welcome.
I'm not sure if it's better being on that side or this side, but we'll
I
see
know.
how it goes.
Nerve-wracking either way. So Ames, obviously we as coaches, we know you've taken part in some pretty serious challenges over the last 10 years. But first off, what exactly got you into this, and can you let people know what challenges you have taken part in?
Yeah, so a bit like, how do I even start? Well, I became a PT 10 years ago, and I was working at a gym, and I remember just training for strength and just general life. And this guy, one of my friends, was like, what are you training for? And I said, I don't know, just training to get stronger, to get fitter. And they were all really big into obstacle course races at the time. And they're like, we're going to this race in a couple of weeks. It's called the Pain and Suffering race. And I was like,
The name alone.
yeah, sign me up. Why not? Didn't know anything about it. Didn't know how long it was in length or what was involved at all. And it was, I don't know, something crazy like 15K of hills with a load of obstacles. And it was really long because there were so many hills. But anyway, I managed to get to the end of Pain and Suffering with loads of cramps and probably broken hands. And I was like, actually, and they were all saying, that was the worst one we've ever done. I can't possibly, like, this is horrible. Yeah. And I was like, I actually quite liked it. Sign me up for the next one. Anyway, so then we just went into a phase of loads and loads of obstacle course races. And we weirdly, quite a few of us in the group managed to qualify to go to Canada for the World Championships. So we made a holiday out of it, went to Canada, did the World Championships, and then did just loads of other ones in the UK. But then at the time in the UK, the functional fitness events were building as well. So like turf games, NFG, stuff like that. And we just all were really competitive, loved days out, weekends away, doing stuff like that. So I just feel like I did loads of obstacle courses, functional fitness events, half marathon, 10Ks, just over that time. I can't remember when I did what when, don't ask me any of the years, but I just loved it. And I realized quite quickly that I loved having an event to train for, and it gave my training in the gym purpose. And on those days when I was doing the event, I just felt amazing. So I just kept doing them.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I couldn't think of doing anything worse than an obstacle race. But
I look back now and I'm like, I don't like being cold. So the fact that I would like dunk myself in ice and mud and get really wet, I don't know. I did it, but I haven't done one for a while.
No, maybe back to it.
Maybe.
Yeah, this year. Okay, cool. So obviously we know what's got you hooked straight away. And is that what kept bringing you back for more? Kind of just enjoying the idea of an event?
Yeah, I think so. And actually, when you do the event, I can't describe it. It's almost, especially when you're outside in these obstacle course events, and when you're like out in the woods or going up hills, or in Canada, it was like literally on the side of a mountain. And I remember like bear crawling up the side of a mountain. But weirdly, you just go into this kind of, I don't know what the word is. Is it euphoric, or kind of like a really mindful state where you don't think about anything else? You just are in it.
Survival mode almost.
Yeah, but you get this really weird level of like focus, and that's the only thing that matters. And at the end of it, you feel so amazing, even though, don't get me wrong, they haven't all gone that well, or I haven't always got the result I would have wanted to. But I just think doing it and then getting to the end of it and being like, yeah, that's a good Saturday day out.
Okay, so you've obviously touched on when things didn't necessarily go to plan. So how did that experience kind of shape your mindset, and what was it that didn't go to plan?
I mean, many things. I always like give a good talk. I'm very competitive, but I'm not always that good. I think I just like to give things a go.
Yeah.
But I think actually the first one, when we went to the World Championships in Canada, we had all done races in the UK, and like I won a race in the UK. So I was like, I'm actually all right at this obstacle race thing. And then we went to Canada, and basically the premise of the World Championships is you get a wristband, and there are 100 obstacles. And you get to an obstacle and you have to complete it. If you don't complete it, you can't carry on with the race. So they cut your wristband off, basically.
Harsh. Okay, yep.
So you can complete them or try as many times as you want to.
As in you can go back to the same obstacle.
Yeah, as in you're on that obstacle, you're literally stuck.
Got you. It's not a one-time attempt.
You could try 100 times or more. But then at this point, obstacle course racing is like your grip is everything. So your forearms are burnt. Your hands are completely torn to shreds, like you got blood all over your hands. So there's only so many times. You have to kind of leave it a bit of a break to keep going.
Yeah.
Anyway, I remember a whole massive group of us, random people from everywhere in the world, was stuck on this obstacle called Stairway to Heaven, which is like a big kind of like A-frame board where you had to, I'm not describing this very well, you had to almost like monkey bar backwards up to the top, and then it's like a step down ladder where you had to come back down the side. Everyone was just failing at this obstacle, myself included, and it was that obstacle that I basically had to tap out. I'd been there for probably like 2 hours, and I was like, I'm just not going to be able,
that one
I was
obstacle.
like, I'm not going to be able to complete it. So anyway, that was my race done. But it took me, about 3 hours because I was stuck there. But at the end of that race, I was like, oh, okay, I'm not actually as good as I think I am at all at this obstacle course racing. I can't even complete the race. So it made me come back and just really work on my technique, grip strength, obstacle specific work. And it just made me get way more focused, so that when the next time I actually went back to the World Championships, they were in Essex, so not quite as far to travel. And I actually didn't finish all 100 obstacles, but I got to like 97 or something.
Amazing. Okay.
So I had made such a massive progress. So I think
improvement.
in a long way to answer that question is, they've definitely not all gone very well, but I've always learned something from them.
Yep.
And realised that actually there's an area that I can improve on or develop, and I find that really exciting. It's like, it's not good. I don't think it's that great to be the finished article. I mean, I'm not an elite athlete anyway, but I think doing something like that and being like, okay, what can I go away on and work on? How can I improve? How can I get better? And then retest yourself by going back and doing the thing. I think it teaches you a lot about yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Very, very resilient. So on that, big question. Does failure really exist?
I don't think so. I think like I said, you can only learn from failing, if you want to call it that. I guess failure in a traditional sense is just not doing the thing that you wanted to do. So say you had a goal, mine was to complete the World Championship, say for example, and I didn't. Yes, I failed at that, but I learned that I still wanted to do it and try again.
Yep.
I wanted to get better at it. I wanted to see where I could take my training and that journey, and I only learned from it. So, and I think you could liken that to anything within the gym or life. I failed at, say I wanted to do a 100 kilo deadlift, and I failed at that rep at that time. There's nothing to stop me from carrying on and continuing to try and do that and improve. And I think that if you always take a learning from a failure, then you can there's always so much to learn from it.
100%. I don't think you've touched on this, but obviously you're a mum of two. Being pregnant and that crazy postpartum era, how did you have to adjust and shift your training and your focuses and your events in that time, and how did you find that?
Actually, I think I didn't realise till I was in it, which I think a lot of us have talked about today, how much I relied on training and doing these events, because they were the things that made me feel like me. So actually, when I had just had both of the girls, second time round was easier because I knew a bit more what I was walking into. But when I had Cleo, I just felt a bit lost. It was COVID as well, so the gyms were shut. So in that sense, it was easier because no one else was doing all of those events as well.
True.
But also I was kind of just a bit lost, like ambling around, like what am I doing? What am I training for? So I did actually find that stage of it really hard. And I don't think I had an event or anything booked in for a long time after. Actually, no, I say that. A year after I had Cleo, I did my first high rocks. But actually,
That's good.
but actually, in that, like the very first few months after I'd had her, I didn't have anything planned. And also, I was in this new body. I had a really good pregnancy and actually a really good recovery from birth. So I didn't have it as hard as some women have it. And even I felt like, this doesn't really feel like me, it doesn't feel like my body, and I can't do the things. And it's just also just adjusting your mindset. So I'm not going to be able to go in and lift all the things that I would have lifted, even because I was training right up until I was, I don't know, like 40 weeks pregnant or something, and I was still lifting pretty good weights. And I remember after I had Cleo, I went to just go and sit up in bed like a day after. I hadn't had a C-section, so I was like, I should just be able to do this. And I was like, I can't actually sit up.
Do you know what?
So it was a big shock.
It is something about, what is it? I remember JT used to coach me before we worked together, and I just had Rudy, and I came in for my first session. He was like, okay, do a push-up. I was like, no, I can't do a push-up. And he was like, okay, we'll do it on you. No, I can't. And I think we had to get one of those massive plyo boxes, and I just about managed like 3 from there. It is mad what your body goes
So it's a
through.
big adjustment.
Massive.
But I think for me, and then the second time round, like I said, I knew what I was walking into a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I think I'd booked High Rocks maybe before I'd had Layla. I can't remember, or very, very early days. So I always had that goal.
Was this when we did High Rocks? Yeah.
Yeah. So that was 9 months. And I felt like that was a good amount of time to get back into training slowly, ease my way back into it, but then get a bit more specific with training for High Rocks a few months out.
Okay, so talk to me about High Rocks, because I remember when you're like, Days, do you want to do it? I was like, yes, but I know Amy and I know you're competitive and I know you have a time in mind. So talk to me about High Rocks, the time that you had in mind, and did we achieve that time? I think it sounds very similar to another podcast.
So I think you could look at, again, the story, which I'll get to. I guess you could say we technically failed. I had that time in mind because I'd seen what Luke and JT had done, and I was like, 9 months post-baby, and also Days had surgery, and we hadn't done one together. It's like they got 108 on their first one. I was like, if we get under 110, I think that's like pretty close to their target. Shows how competitive I am, because it really doesn't matter what everyone else is doing, but it does. And I was like, do you know what? If we get under 110, I think that would be, I mean, look, any time is respectable. Doing a High Rocks is respectable, but I just thought that would be an aspirational enough goal. It would be hard to achieve, but I actually did believe that we could probably do it.
Yeah.
And then got you involved, which is really exciting. It was really nice that we could train together at the
It
gym
was so
as well.
nice. Yeah, it was.
And actually, when we started training, I did relax and thought, do you know what? It actually doesn't matter on the time, although I still had this one
She probably realised
one
how
hour.
slow
No,
I was.
it wasn't even that. It wasn't even that. It was just like, do you know what? Actually, cut yourself some slack. You've both had a big journey postnatally. But when we got there, we actually both felt really good, didn't we? So
Yeah, we did. We loved it.
we started out really
Buzzing.
strong. We were actually on for a really good time. And
Yeah.
it was only towards the end where I was like, actually, we'd done the lunges, and I think we had something like six minutes
6 minutes
left
to do the
go,
run
I was
and
like,
the
there's
wall
no
balls,
way
wasn't
we could
it?
run
Yeah.
and wall ball. And then I just thought, it is what it is. And we finished in 112, which is still a really good time. And both of us were really proud of that time when we finished. But I think it made me realise that we could definitely get under 1 hour 10, because it was
100%.
so close. Like that goal was just in touching distance. So we've definitely got some unfinished business, I'm sure, at some point.
Yeah, at
to
some
go
point
back
we
and
will
do it again.
be back there, and yeah, we'll see what we can get. Okay, so for a lot of people, training can obviously sometimes feel like a bit of a chore. How do you think having a really specific performance goal, rather than just training for aesthetics, changes the way that people can approach fitness?
That's a good question. I honestly, that's all I've done for the last 10 years. I actually did really randomly train for like a little mini shoot. It wasn't like Mel's, but I realised quite quickly that just wasn't really me. So I've always had an event or a performance that I've trained for. And I honestly believe that if you do that, you'll have such focus in doing that. It basically changes a lot of things in your life without you even realising it. Because you've got this discipline around training, because you have this event, you don't want to almost let yourself down with the event. So you go, okay, well, I have to do X amount of lifting sessions a week, or I have to do X amount of conditioning, running sessions, whatever it is for the goal. I think you are more adamant that you're going to get those done. So then they're a structure in your life. And then off the back of that, you just start eating better. You're thinking about fueling your body and what can I give my body to enhance it and to provide the nutrients and the fuel it needs, rather than what can I restrict and what do I need to take away. So I think it just completely changes your mindset. And as a result, your body changes as a result. But you haven't got that focus of my body, but actually, because you've changed your mindset around your body and you're training for performance, it changes your body anyway.
Yeah, it does.
So.
Yeah, and then you achieve a lot more things in the meantime with it. Okay, so obviously it's International Women's Day. What is the message to all the women listening that you would like to give, especially to those who are kind of hesitant to step out of their comfort zone?
I think it's an interesting one, because I think I've maybe got a different attitude to a lot of people with it. I just I do and then I think, and so I don't worry about
that is
so I think I push myself way outside of my comfort zone. But I do, in all honesty, I do think that where people's comfort zone is and what they think they can stretch to is they can stretch way further than they actually think that they can. I think people just have generally quite a limited mindset, and self-belief is quite low, especially for a lot of women. I think a lot of people don't believe that they can do certain things or things that they're not capable of. You're way more capable than you think you are. Challenge yourself, because going on that journey and pushing yourself, and you will achieve things that you didn't think you'd be able to achieve, and you'll feel so amazing afterwards. That journey is just so worth it. So comfort zones need to be pushed and stretched, because you've got so much more in you than you think you do.
Yeah, and what's the worst that can happen?
Always my motto.
Love that. Thanks so much, James.
No, thank you.